I have as my guest today Debbie Perkins. She's the newest team member. I've known Debbie for a very, very long time, and she is very strong in her recovery, and she represents recovery well, and I wanted to let her share some of her story with you. And with that, I'll bring you Debbie. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you so much, Robin. Hi, my name's Debbie, and I'm an addict. You know, what I know is that it took me a really long time to even be able to say that word. Because, you know, once you say that you're an addict, it kind of means that you have to do something about it. When I was little, I was molested. I was 6 years old, and my abuser gave me alcohol. And he told me that if I ever told anybody, that he would do it to my sister. So I thought that as long as I didn't say anything to anybody, my secret would be safe with me. My dad was very abusive. He used to beat the heck out of my mom and us siblings, and I just always thought that life was like that. You know, that everybody's dad beat on their mom and beat on their kids, and their families hurt them. So I grew up not trusting anybody. My parents put me in kickboxing early because they thought that if they couldn't understand why I was beating people up in kindergarten. And little did they know that I was in a lot of pain. And my character defect is anger. So I grew up hurting and very codependent, trying to protect my mom and my siblings. I got through high school okay, but what happened was that I ended up getting raped, and I gave birth to my now 21-year-old daughter handcuffed to a bed. I was in and out of the jails. You know, when they say jails, institutions, and death, that's real. You know, I just had no idea that my past and my present would collide like it has today. I've been to prison 3 times. I have 37 felonies, all due to drug addiction. Both of my parents committed suicide, and everything that I went through in my adulthood and my early childhood just led me to use drugs, because what I knew is that I just didn't want to feel it all. And as long as I could use, I put my past behind me. Well, what happened was I kept getting in trouble, and my stepdad, he was dying of cancer, and I was facing 10 years, and the judge didn't want to hear anything that I had to say. You know, back in the day, that's all they did. They incarcerated you. And incarceration is not the answer to anybody that's in active addiction. All it did was teach me how to get away with more stuff, and it kept me in pain because I never dealt with my past. I was in and out of the rooms. The only time that I went to learn anything about addiction, I went into the drug dorm in the county jail, and that's only because they gave you more food. I didn't want to hear anything that they had to say. And, you know, they would put the 12 steps of recovery in front of me. And, you know, I believed in God. I just didn't believe he was there for me. You know, like everything in my past, I was a victim. And my mentality was, if you went through what I went through, you would too. And that's how I lived my life. I gave myself permission. And I never told anybody about the molestation, and that was like my badge of honor. You know, as long as I kept my little dirty secret, I always thought early on, you know, that something was wrong with me, because it never happened to my sister. So when I went in front of the judge, he wanted to give me 10 more years, but he let me take care of my stepdad. And he said, you know what, Miss Perkins, this is what I know. He said, you're going to be back. And he's looking at my extensive record in front of him. And that made me mad. You know, and what he sentenced me to was a 2 years house arrest, and he sentenced me to a meeting every day. And I was mad. I was mad. I used to walk into the meetings and I'd cuss everybody out. Don't hug me, don't touch me. I'm here because the judge says I have to be. Just sign my paper and let me go. And what happened was I had a woman of faith, and she walked up to me and she says, Debbie, who's your sponsor? And for some reason, I couldn't cuss this lady out, because what I learned early on in church is that, you know, the wrath of God. I mean, that's what they taught us in church. And I didn't want anything to do with any kind of spirituality. And, you know, in every step, the first one is we admitted we were powerless over drugs or alcohol. Everything else was spiritual, and I didn't want any part of it. And so the lady, I couldn't cuss her out, and I didn't cuss her out. And after the meeting, she puts this little piece of paper in my hand, and she says, you know, I am now your sponsor, and I'll be at your house in 3 days. And for the first time in my life, I opened the big book. And what I found out was that, am I the only one that has a bad past? No. I mean, is my past worse than most? Absolutely. But what I learned was that, you know, the only way that I'm going to have a future is if I dealt with my past. And it was my first 6 months to a year was the most painful that I have ever experienced. I had to deal with the molestation, the rapes, my parents committing suicide. Somebody said to me in the meeting, you know, Deb, as long as you keep ruining your life, that man is he's still winning, you know, and that made sense to me. And I just knew that he wasn't going to beat me anymore. And I worked hard on the 12 steps of recovery. I took suggestions for the first time in my life. You know, every time I would go in there, I always thought that I was strong enough, different from everybody. I was strong enough. I didn't have to work those steps. I had no sponsor. And what I found in the 12 steps in the rooms of recovery is that I found my humility and I found my place in life. You know, these people loved me when I didn't know how to love myself. They're hugely a part of my life. When my stepdad died, it for the majority, it wasn't his friends or my friends, but it was the people in the rooms. They surrounded me, and they were there for me and got me through it. You know, I always thought when life would get real easy once I got sober, and what I found out that it doesn't. My boyfriend passed away. First healthy relationship that I ever had. He passed away, and I got through it, and I got through it sober, because what I learned in this 12 steps of recovery is to pick up the phone and talk to people when I was hurting, which is one thing that I never did. I never told anybody about anything that I ever went through. And now I have amazing, amazing friends in these rooms. Another thing that somebody said to me is, Debbie, you can't live dirty and stay clean. And I thought, well, what the heck does that mean? Because what I can tell you when I was out there in them streets is that, you know, I knew how to lie, cheat, steal, manipulate. And when I got sober, I was still doing all that stuff. And my sponsor says to me, she says, Debbie, this is what you need to do. At the end of the day, I want you to write down how your day went, and everybody that you hurt in that day, I want you to pick up that phone and I want you to make amends. And I didn't want to do that because my pride was just ridiculous. But you know what? For the first time, I took those suggestions. And what happened was, I might have been on the phone for 3 hours every day. You know, I might not should have beat you up, click. You know, I should have not cussed you out, click. But what I found out the next day is how good I felt about me. I've learned that this program is a daily reprieve. And one day at a time, I've learned how to live life, and I've lived life successfully. I couldn't string together more than 30 days at any given time because I didn't want to stay sober. I wanted to be able to use with no consequences. And any of y'all that are out there, you got to know, you know, that's not reality. You know, it took me a while to learn my addict mentality versus reality. You know, my mind said, Debbie, you know what? You're healed. You know, you can go do one little bit of this drug or one little bit of that. And reality was, it always took me back to jails and institutions. So anybody that's out there in early recovery, do the work, believe in yourself, and believe in the people around you. When I first walked into the rooms, I thought that was a cult, and everybody was smiling and happy. And I thought for sure that I was in a cult, but what I found out is that everybody's in there that's happy because it's reality. And I've become them, and I'm one of them. I'm really blessed. There's so much more to my story, but I just gave you a little piece of it. You know, thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you for doing that. Fucking awesome. Yeah, I can relate to a lot of things she said. The substances we use, our lifestyles may be different, but the feelings associated with our addictions and the consequences are all the same.
Looking away one more time, span the distance of our minds, find yourself lost in life. May we still see with our own eyes? Will we live like
Nervous. You know, as I said in my radio show the other night, that it's a week of me walking through my fears. Coming up on 7 months clean and sober again. 4 days. And I really put off doing live feeds because I wanted to make sure my message was clear and concise, and that I had the ability to concentrate and to convey what I have to say properly, and hopefully reach someone out there struggling, someone that's fallen and needs some encouragement and guidance to get back up, because we don't fail in falling down. When we fail is when we stay down there and just get so immersed in the crap and the negativity of the stigma around relapsing. You know, people love you and they want you to be successful, and I'm a prime example of someone that has fallen more times than not, and I've had to find different ways and means to pick myself back up and to keep moving forward. So I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Higgy. I'm the host of Redemption Road Recovery Music on recoveryradio.fm. I am the creator of Redemption Road, the recovery support page, Redemption Road Recovery Music page. Gone Before Their Time is another page of mine. I am in a partnership with Debbie Perkins and ERIN in Restoring Hope Sober Services, LLC, and we have a page, No More Heroin, which is a resource page for people to reach out for help. And we're bringing on other resources on No More Heroin to form a coalition so we can share our resources and reach more people and give that message of hope and get it out there, because we all need that. So Carmen, I want to let you know one thing. This is hard for me because, for one, the last 3 days you've had Tim Ryan on here, Steve-O. Those are hard acts to follow, bro. But I'm going to do my best. I love you. I appreciate you. Like I said, my name is Higgy. But before I was Higgy, my name is Robin Paul Higginbotham. I was raised in the small town of Hicksville, Ohio, real name, in the northwest corner of Ohio. It's a town of about 3,500 people. It's a country town. I'm a country boy. And if you're familiar with Johnny Cash, my life is very similar to that song, A Boy Named Sue, almost to a T. But growing up, I was born into a family of a young high school couple. I came into their life too soon in life, and there was a lot of turbulence. I was raised in a very disruptive environment, and it damaged me from a very young age. My earliest childhood memories are of my mom and dad fighting, and my mom screaming as he's abusing her. And I was about the age of 3, and I remember it vividly because that's when my first traumatic event in my life happened. My life has a lot of traumatic events that propelled me into my addiction further and further, and I'll get into that because I suffer from complex PTSD, which is being exposed to violence over and over and over again, and it altered my mental capabilities, and I started seeking things outside myself for comfort. And growing up in that turbulent environment, I realized and knew what real fear was all about. I knew it, and it was instilled in me at a very young age. Okay, as I'm growing up in this turbulent environment, I grew up on the outside of town, small town. Grew up on motorcycles, horses, go-karts. I had a woods to play in. I had a creek to play in. I had a pond. I had a lot of things that brought me comfort and joy, but it was marred by the constant domestic violence in my life, and it caused me to seek things outside myself to make me feel whole. I was taught at a very young age, men don't cry, and that I wasn't wanted. They were 16 and 17 when they got married. Life was hard on them, and I received a lot of negative attention, so to speak. And during my growing up, between the ages of 10 and 12, after having witnessed so much violence and fearing for my mom's life and mine and my sibling, I had plotted to kill my father in his sleep. And it was either I was going to beat him to death with a baseball bat, and I was maybe 11 or 12, or I was going to pour gasoline on him and set him on fire, because I was that feared up and scared and felt that I had to do something. And that's where my issues with codependency and being a caretaker took off. I had to save her, but I couldn't bring myself to doing it. I just couldn't. That's not who I am at my core. I'm not an evil, violent person at my core. I can be driven to it, but that's not who I am. So I couldn't do it. So then I started, the feelings of guilt and shame were so rampant going through my mind, my body. I'm just a young kid, and I can pinpoint that time in my life as when my addiction really took off, because I started drinking alcohol. I went to the medicine cabinet. I grew up in the era of the egg in the skillet. This is your brain on drugs. I didn't care. Once I'd experienced what alcohol was like, which it was very prevalent in my upbringing from my extended family. And my father was an alcoholic, and he was a very dry, angry drunk, and he took it out on us. And what I'm telling you now is a secret that I kept inside me until last fall. That's a secret I thought I would never tell anyone, that I was going to murder someone as a child, and I had that buried in the back of my head. It's one of those subconscious things that mess with me all through my life, and I felt worthless. I felt shameful. I felt guilty because I wasn't man enough. I was a kid, and I couldn't do anything to protect my mom. And I had fantasized over and over about it so much that it became a reality to me. And even though I didn't do that, I viewed myself as a murderer, just unforgivable. God would never forgive me. And at that age, I started having suicidal ideations. I've cut myself. I know what the taste of gun oil tastes like, because I grew up in a home with a lot of guns. I have had guns in my mouth, but I could never pull the trigger. Thankfully, but that added to my shame and guilt, because I couldn't do it, and no normal person wants to do that. Anyways, from the medicine cabinet and stealing alcohol, I progressed to smoking weed, and I was tripping on acid by the 7th grade. Now you'll see as I speak that I stutter. Last year I overdosed 6 times. It was in 4 different detox centers, and I damaged myself, mentally, from the deprivation of oxygen and whatnot. And I'm very grateful to be here. So if I stutter or I trip over my words, I'm working on that. That's why I've waited so long to do a live feed like this, so I could convey myself and not get too ahead of myself. So you'll see me catch my breath, and doing my radio show has helped me do this. But from junior high on up, I was experimenting with any kind of drugs I could get. Sexually, I was acting out. I was rebelling, and those patterns I developed have followed me all through life. It helped me develop self-sabotaging, self-destructive behaviors, and the feeling of worthlessness and shame have fueled my addictions. And I always viewed myself as a victim, and that's played out throughout my life. And I viewed myself as a victim, and I used it as a manipulation tool to manipulate other people to feel sorry for me too. And it's never really worked out very well for me. Went through high school. I received very good grades in school, although I had a very hard time concentrating. I have ADHD. I had a lot of undiagnosed mental illness problems at an early age, and I'm a self-medicator. Anything to make me feel better, I want to put in me, and if it makes me feel good, I want more of it. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's drugs, alcohol, food, material things, women, relationships, jobs. My ego will take over and tell me I need more, and it doesn't matter what it is. Got married at a young age, and I'm stealing drugs, drinking, using. I married a very good girl, and I treated her like crap. I cheated on her, and she was the very last woman that I've ever cheated on, because she did it right back to me. And that further propelled me into my drug addiction, which in that era it was crack cocaine. And once I experimented with crack cocaine, it was over. It was over, because I fell in love with it. And I lost everything good in my life due to that addiction. And from that addiction, it's propelled me into other addictions as well. As you can imagine, anybody that knows what the demon of crack cocaine and cocaine can do to you. Well, I mix my drugs together, so I'm what they call a polysubstance abuser, which is more than one. And I'm dual diagnosis, which means I have mental illness intermeshed with my substance abuse issues. So I've been screwed since the beginning. So, but anyways, I went in the military when I was 26 years old. Couldn't handle life on life's terms. I worked in a steel factory as a steel worker. Great job for my area, but I couldn't get it together. I was involved in different personal relationships that were seedy. I just wanted to. I kept wanting to escape. Anywhere that I could find relief. And I went in the military. I went in the military when I was 26 years old. As soon as I went in the military, went through my school, I went into the Navy. The Persian Gulf conflict broke out, so I went right to the Persian Gulf and did my tour of duty there. And during my time there, I injured myself and was released with a medical discharge. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm a Persian Gulf era naval veteran. I'm a patriot. I love my country, and I love all my veterans. Okay, moving on. I really don't want to stick in the problem so much as get into what the solution is, and being an advocate and having to pick myself up. That's where I want to go with this, because hey, I'm back. But I was released from service, from the service, and I came back home, and I couldn't get along with my parents. I couldn't get along with my family. I was an outcast. I was a black sheep. It's the way it's been my whole life with my family. To this day, I have not spoken to my immediate family since they told me to leave and never come back in 2002. Actually, I seen my mom last year, I think, just briefly in passing, and it's just like meeting a stranger, which I'm okay with that, because I have other people that have come into my life to play the roles that they should have been playing. My recovery family is all I have, and if you're in my family, we are family. And after I was released from the military, I went back home. It didn't work out. I moved from Ohio all the way across country to Phoenix, Arizona, because my drug addiction told me geographical relocation was going to be better for me. In my head, I knew that I was going to go out there and use until I died, because I didn't want no one else to see me go through what I was going through, and I just knew I was going to die. So I got out there, went through homelessness. I got involved with the bikers underground, cooking crystal meth. I have mental pictures of scenes of death and violence that I can't get out of my head, which further add to my PTSD, which I was attacked outside of a nightclub in the military, and more PTSD. Trauma has played a major role in my addiction and my thinking process. Being involved in underground meth manufacturing, you see all kinds of crazy things. I was homeless on the streets, pushing a shopping cart, bouncing from mental wards
to homeless shelters, to people's homes, to clubhouses, to abandoned houses, to sleeping on the street, because my drug addiction would not leave me alone, and my mind would not shut up, and I had no coping mechanisms whatsoever. And through this whole process, I'm constantly unraveling, and I'm a slave to the grind, you know, in the drug culture out there, and the whole mess, whatever. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to go through that too much. Anyways, I ended up leaving Phoenix, coming back home one more time, and it didn't work out again with my family. And I ended up in more decades of using drugs, crack cocaine, heroin, alcohol, pills, anything I could get my hands on, try to fix what was wrong inside of me. You know, I can tell you that I believe that my addiction is the cause of my addiction is an underlying issue with me, and I've laid it out to you what I know my issues are, and the spiritual malady within me was so evident, and it took me getting sober many times to understand this and what I was missing in my life. You know, I've been a recovery advocate for the last 3 years. I came to Florida. I escaped Ohio one more time and found myself in treatment. I'm a veteran. I went through a veterans program. At 6 months clean and sober, I lied and got a job as a tech in the treatment center. I did that for about 3-4 months, and then decided I wanted to put together a foundation, and I put together my first recovery support page. It blew up. I moved to Ohio to set this plan in motion. I was on fire, man. Recovery was the thing that, you know, that was my niche. I finally found what I was going to do, you know, and it didn't work out. I got there, it all fell apart. I didn't have a plan B, and I relapsed, and within 10 days I was living in a drug den. And from there I found my way back to Florida, and I've been here ever since. I've learned a lot in the time, in my lengths of sobriety. At one point I have had over 2 years. You know, I found recovery late in life. You know, it's something that wasn't readily available to me growing up. That I wasn't aware of it. You know, you don't know what you don't know. So Alicia and Frankie helped me along the way from FHF, mentored me, gave me opportunity to play a role in the recovery community. Okay, when I left Ohio on that relapse, I found myself in detox with the last 4 kids I put into treatment. That's very humbling, very humbling. But that was relapse before last. This relapse, I moved out of sober living into the home of someone that I thought was sober, and they left town, and him and their girlfriend split up, and he had asked me to clean his apartment. I was under the assumption that he was clean. I didn't know that he'd been using, and when put in a position to dispose of things, I wasn't ready for that, and I didn't ask for help. And one thing I know going forward now, I will never be caught in that position ever again by myself. Anything I do that will put me at risk, I take someone with me. Everything, interventions, taking someone to detox, picking someone up off the street, feeding someone that needs food alongside the road. I do not do it by myself. You know, I took on that responsibility as a means of, you know, showing my loyalty, you know, my gratitude, and my ego says I can do that. It's not true. Don't ever get yourself put in that position where you are being subjected to the demons that have destroyed your life. You never take never go by yourself. Take someone with you. I can't express that more than enough. And that set me on a 10-month in and out that led me to my 6 months overdose, or six overdoses last year into 4 detoxes. I walked out of my apartment November 25th, which is Thanksgiving Day of last year. I walked out of an apartment for the 4th time because I'd always go back. I'd leave and I could not stop using. I couldn't stop using. And I finally left. And the crazy part is I have people's numbers in my phone from all over the country that are very, very active. They could help me. They could give me the encouragement. I was so full of shame and guilt that I could not pick up the phone and call anybody. I was so seized up, so tormented, and I did it all to myself. All I had to do was pick up that phone. That phone is so heavy. But if you're in that position, please reach out. There's people out here that love you, you know, and I have people that have loved me to get me back on my feet to where I am today, because I absolutely had no value. I hated myself. I hated the fact that I had this support network and I just couldn't utilize it. I couldn't. I know better now. And there's no more shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I know better now. I will not be in that position again. I will not make my work my recovery. My radio show will not be my recovery. Making live feeds, doing this stuff, which I'm very uncomfortable doing because I'm always paying attention to viewers. Oh, they're not paying attention, and then I'm trying to read the comments. I don't care about this. The fact is, people love you, and you just don't realize it. You know, you can't feel it. You're all numbed up. You're so full of guilt and shame, and that voice in your head is telling you you're worthless, and it's lying. Your disease is lying to you. Your disease wants you dead, and it'll do it very slowly and quickly. And moving forward, I have almost 7 months. Things have turned around amazingly fast for me once I surrendered. And being a veteran of the military and the streets, surrender equated to weakness in my head. My voice. Robin left to Robin's head leaves him broken, almost dead, and very possibly will be dead the next time I pick up a drug or alcohol. You don't have to feel like that. You don't have to feel like that. You know, people love you, and I'm doing this live feed just so you can see that recovery does work. You know, I am no recovery guru, believe that. I am not like well versed in the big book, but I can sure tell you what the fuck don't work. And what I did not work. You know, I cannot fix myself with the same thinking which I used to create all my problems, which happened over 3.5 decades. I cannot fix myself. I cannot do this by myself. I cannot outsmart my disease. I cannot manipulate my disease. I cannot pick up a substance of any type to ease the mental anguish in my head. And knowing that I'm a self-medicator, the only thing that fixes me is God and my program and my loving support that keeps me grounded and right-sized, because I don't have an ego, but I have a lot of false pride, which is probably the same thing. I just never felt strong enough, you know, like headstrong enough to be considered egotistical, but I know I've taken a lot of pride in some foolish things that never got me anywhere. Money will not make me happy. Multiple relationships won't make me happy. Being dishonest, lying, cheating, stealing will never make me happy, ever. There's no amount of money that can buy me sobriety and peace of mind that I have today. I love my life today. November 25th, I walked out of an apartment. I detoxed in the sober living home that I live in now. I manage a sober living house. I run a radio show. I have a radio because there's no reason for me to get high. Nothing. I surround myself with overcomers and winners, people that have lost so much and never picked up a drug. Debbie Perkins, I love you. She has endured so much trauma and heartache in her life, and she is the role model of what recovery should be to me. She's so kind and giving to everyone, and she has every reason to hate the world and want to kill people. She doesn't. She feeds people outside of Walmart and buys their dogs treats and feeds them. And ERIN Doherty, who was home, her sober home that I live in, I love you. I love you very much. She has endured so much heartache and never picked up a drug or alcohol to ease that. She worked through it, worked her program, let people love her to get her through it. There's nothing in this world worth getting high over, and here I am. I want to get high because someone cut me off in traffic. I stubbed my toe. You know, I open the door and it hits me in the head. I get mad and angry, and I want to quiet that noise in my head. Left without a program, without a connection to a higher power. You don't have to be like that. You don't have to. Don't be like Robin. Don't be like Higgy. My life's been a shit show, but it's not going to be anymore. As long as I go to meetings, I speak in the meetings, I become vulnerable, like I'm doing right now, sharing from my heart to you. I got a sponsor. I work the steps. I give back. I give back daily. I stay connected. You know, you see me on social media all over the place. Being on social media is not my recovery. It's just one aspect of my recovery. My radio show is just one aspect of my recovery. My recovery is sitting in meetings, connecting with other people, working with my sponsor, talking with my sponsees, fellowshipping, staying connected to a group of people that have survived a common peril like I have. Make me feel, make it okay for me to be me, and today I'm okay with me. Really don't have a whole lot more. I want to thank Mark for having me. This is my first live feed, so I probably jumped all over the place. I'm sorry about the interruption in the middle. I have a couple more things. I've been involved in three interventions this week, one form or another, and I got to see, I have seen firsthand the tormented person that I was within these other people. And if Danielle's watching, I love you. Keep doing the deal. Get to detox. Get the detox tonight. Stay in treatment, and there'll be a lot of support for you coming, you know, waiting for you when you come out. I stressed over you. I'm glad you made it in treatment, and the other two guys are one's in sober living and the other one's in treatment now, and to see them cry and want to run and not know what to do, and been driven by that compulsion, that need to get high, to feel better, and to be able to fight through it. It gets better. It will get better. If you're struggling, reach out. Hit me up on Facebook. Hit me up on Redemption Road. I have an amazing admin staff. I love you. Faith, Claudia, Nikki, Allie, Jeremy, Benny, Tanya, sorry. Katie's in there. Katie, if you're out there, I love you. Thank you for everything you're doing. I have an amazing network of friends, and they didn't just show up in my life. I had to reach out and ask for them. That's what you need to do. Admit that you don't know anything, because the only thing I knew how to do was get high and wreck my life. And I'm grateful to be here, and it's a miracle that I haven't had to get drunk or high today.
I'm only human, and I bleed when I fall down. I'm only human, and I crash and I break down. Your words in my head, knives in my heart. You build me up and then I fall apart, 'cause I'm only human.
Sometimes I feel like I got it in me to rise above it. The same voice that says I hate it tells me that I love it. I tried to hold on to the things I thought I'd never lose. I felt I didn't have a choice when I chose to use. Don't mean to confuse or complicate the issue. Sometimes you see it but don't feel it till it fucking hits you. And there's a tissue in my palm inside of a fist, because it hurts worse first before it gets me pissed. And there's a list I must have missed, but now I'm looking for it. And gratitude for my attitude, why do I ignore it? Exploring options, I'm confident, try and make a way. I made my bed, but in it I don't think that I'ma stay. The sky is gray, but I'm looking for the silver lining. The sun is hiding, but I know someday it will be shining. No more rewinding, I'm pressing forward. All I can do to give my best and take what's old and try to make it new. Yeah, I'm only human,
And I bleed when I fall
I bleed and I fall down. Come on,
and I crash and I break
I tears turn to waves like the ocean when it's crashing in. I try to salvage what I can, it's time to pack again. I see the sand where I stand and where I used to lay. The tide rises as I sit to watch it wash away. I find a spot to pray, and all I got to say, Lord, show me what I got to do to make it stay, and make a way. I've tried but I've been led astray, and what I go around, it always ends up in my way. And yeah, I got today, and while I'm still around, I push and pull and do it till it's all above the ground. And yeah, I know the sound, and I know how it goes, to see this door open up and just to watch it close. And yes, I suppose this is just the road I chose, or karma coming back around to give my ass a dose. I try to make the most and give it all my best, and peace is what I'm in it for, and you can keep the rest. Yeah, I'm only human,
And I bleed when I fall
I bleed and I fall down. Come on.
And I crash and I break
I crash
down.
and I
Words in my
break
head,
down.
knives in my heart. You build me up and then I fall
Build me
apart.
up
'Cause
just
I'm
to watch me fall
only
apart.
human.
Yeah, I'm only human. Yeah, I'm only human. Yeah, I'm only human. I see the cars falling, I'm back to where I started. No time for stalling, I'm fixing at what was broken hearted. I call it how I see it, I own it like I bought it. The clocks are ticking, so I'm shooting at this moving target. I try and pause it and off it just like a faucet. Yeah, it's gripping, catching my attention, slipping out the closet. I grab but I hold it, I know just what to do with it. Say listen to this vision, nothing's missing cause it's sitting in it with them. I busted out that prison, I'm basking in this freedom.
Hi everybody, here we go again. We're coming to you from West Palm Beach, Florida. See how you guys are doing. If you guys are just joining us, please comment where you're from and share this video. Get the message out. You definitely want to hear this amazing woman's story. What's up, Rich? How you doing, bro? This is my guest, ERIN Doherty.
Hello.
We're gonna wait a couple minutes. Please let us know where you're from, where you're watching from. We appreciate you guys checking out this video. I wanted to introduce you to ERIN Doherty. I want to make sure she's in there. She has an amazing story. She's been a huge support for me, and I've known her for several years. We've worked together. We've helped people get into sober living treatment. Done a lot of community activities together, feeding the homeless, clothing drives, car washes, and whatnot. She's a person that walks the walk and talks the talk. She lets her mouth match her feet, and that's really important to the people that I have around me today. I know she has a sponsor. She has sponsees that have sponsees, and to me that's an amazing thing. You know, that's people that are truly working the program of we work Alcoholics Anonymous, and that I'll let her tell her story and whatnot. But yeah, with that, I want to bring you Miss ERIN Doherty.
Hi, everybody. My name's ERIN. I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic. I guess it doesn't really matter what you are. I earn the chair. I'm really not going to talk a whole lot about what got me into this seat, because we all got this seat the same way, or we wouldn't be here. I grew up in a family of alcoholics, some drug addicts. My father died from this disease at 42 years old. He pretty much just drank himself to death. My grandmothers on both sides were alcoholics, so it was rampant in my family. I have a sister and two brothers. One of us is in recovery, and he works a program of recovery. And then I have a sister that I also believe is attempting to do this, and a brother that's in prison. So I come from a whole line of the disease. I grew up here in West Palm Beach, and I feel weird because I'm not really sure where to look at this on this thing. I want to look at the people that are sitting in my kitchen. My mom married another alcoholic, and we had this amazing room that he had turned into for the kids, and it was had a pool table and ping pong table and a stereo, and that's where all the kids hung out in my neighborhood. And you know, we smoked pot and we drank, and you know, my mom knew, but she kind of turned a blind eye because she knew where her kids were, and that was important in the day. So by the time I was 12 or 13 years old, I was smoking pot and not so much drinking, but I was the bartender for my dad, and I could make a mean ass Rob Roy. If anybody knows what that is. So I worked in, that's what I did. I worked in in the industry. I worked in bars and a few other establishments that we won't go into detail about. And my drug addiction started at a really young age. You know, I started, you know, using cocaine and the whatnots at probably 17 years old, and I liked it, you know, and it was fun. I can't say it wasn't. I had a lot of fun. You know, there was times when it was so much fun, and one day it wasn't fun anymore, and I don't know when that happened. I had my first child when I was 23 years old. You know, I didn't use with him, but as soon as he was born, all bets were off. My parents pretty much took care of him because I wasn't really capable. I had another child 3.5 years later, and I continued to use with him. I don't know how I was blessed that he was born with 10 fingers and 10 toes. You know, I went to my dad's grave, and you know, I was pretty pissed off at God, because, you know, God had taken my dad, and, you know, people that loved me. And so everything that happened, I had to blame somebody, and God was the chosen one. And I went to my dad's grave, and, you know, I said, Dad, I don't know if you're up there. God, if you're up there, I don't know who's up there, but I need help or I'm going to die. And that night I was arrested for a failure to appear on a traffic ticket. And they kept me in the county jail for 10 days and extradited me on a traffic ticket to another county. And today I know that's how God saved my life. You know, of course I cussed God out then too, but I believe that's how he saved my life. And, you know, I met a man in the program. I went to treatment. I was court ordered to treatment. You know, I met a man. We got married. We were both working programs of recovery. We had another child, and now I have 3 boys. I was working. I was able to get a career. I worked in a laboratory, and you know, life was really good. And my husband started using, and you know, we played the games of go to this treatment center and go to that halfway house, and all of those things. And meanwhile, I have a career, and I have these 3 kids that I'm trying to take care of and keep my head above water. And, you know, by the grace of God, I was able to do that. And, you know, we got divorced because, you know, he couldn't stay clean and I couldn't, you know, life just wasn't working for us. And I was devastated. But I was able to keep life together. You know, we had seen each other, you know, as the years were going on. You know, we kind of kept in touch, and we ran into each other, and, you know, he's sober now, looking good. And, you know, we did one of those old time sake things for Mother's Day. And after I had my 3rd child, I had my tubes tied because I didn't want any more kids. And, you know, I was struggling a lot with, you know, what is the 3rd step? How do you know? And my sponsor said, Erin, you'll know. You know, it's that little voice that talks to us that says, this is right, this is wrong. And I always chose wrong, always. But I knew the difference. I did know that there was a difference. And so I became kind of sick, and I wasn't feeling well. And I worked in a laboratory, and I felt pregnant. And I did a blood test. It came back negative. But I just knew, you know, and I'm still trying to figure out what the hell God's will is for me. And, you know, 3 weeks later, I did another blood test, and the test came back in it, and I was pregnant. And I was like, there's no way. You know, I had my tubes tied and want no more kids. And you know, that's God's will. You know, you do whatever you want to do, but God's will is always going to prevail. So I figured God would surely give me a girl. Because of my age, I had to have an amnio test, and it came back, it was another boy, and I remember being pissed off at God again. Because that was my thing. Anytime shit didn't go my way, it was always God's fault. And so me and my ex-husband sided, and in my mind, I figured that God really wanted us to be together. I mean, that was what God's will was. We're going to get married again. Life's going to be great. And that's not how it worked out. So now I'm divorced, and I have 4 kids and a career and a house, and I'm trying to keep my head above water, and I drug my poor kids to meetings anyways. So I would go to meetings with my kids, and so they knew all about the program. One of my children would sit up on stage and sing Barney's song, "I love you, love me," and we laugh at him today because he's in career too now and sits at that same stage and shares his story. We got divorced again, and I became involved with some people, and I figured I was going to move my kids. I had a child in prison, one in the Army, and these 2 young kids that were lost. And so I figured I could move them somewhere that was, you know, in an area that would be good for boys. And I had a really good job, and I moved into this amazing house in Ocala, and it was on the water, and we had jet skis and, you know, 4-wheelers, and, you know, and that's not what happened. You know, my older son was in jail on a drug-related crime, and my 13-year-old son was getting high, and I got this little kid, you know, that he doesn't know where he fits in. And I remember floating with him on the lake, my son saying to me, "Mom, you didn't want me, did you?" And I said, "Hunter, it wasn't that I didn't want you, I just didn't want any more kids." And he said, "Well, I know why God gave me to you, Mom. You'd be really lonely without me." And you know what? Not truer words were spoken, because he was my pal, because it was just me and him for a really long time. And with all these kids everywhere trying to keep them clean and happy and safe, you know, I forgot that I needed to work a program of recovery, and with 20 years in recovery, I relapsed. You know, I was going to this part of the state to visit one child, and this part of the state to visit another, and you know, I don't even know how it happened. I never actually went back to my drug of choice, but I was definitely using. And I came down to West Palm to visit, and the 4 kids did an intervention on me. And they said, "Mom, you're either going to get clean, or you can take your ass back to Ocala and live alone." And so I detoxed off of opiates on my son's couch. And, you know, of course, like all drug addicts, we lie. You know, and how much are you doing? You know, I did not near did I tell them what I was doing. So I was very sick, and I was grateful that I survived it. And you know, I started going back to meetings, and I hated it because they weren't the same anymore. You know, it wasn't old time AA where people went out and had coffee, and people, you know, called you if you didn't go to meetings. And I figured I could maybe just smoke pot and drink a little bit. And you know, I found myself smoking pot with my kids, something I swore I would never do. And my older son, you know, got out of prison, and I found out he was using again. And you know, I said, and I had it. My third son was in jail too. So, you know, it was trying to. All I wanted my kids was to be happy and not turn out like me, and you know, they did. They turned out just like me. 2 of them were in recovery, and 2 of them aren't drug addicts and alcoholics. But so me and one of my children went up to my mom's house so he could detox, and I stopped using 3 days before that, and I said, I'm going to go back to meetings. Can't be a mom or carry a message of recovery if I'm using too. And so me and my older son, we split up. We split our date is the same. It's 3 days apart. So when we pick up our lions, we do it together. It's pretty amazing. I have another son that's he's going to be picking up 3 years, and my next medallion will be 5. And it was really hard to come back. You know, it was really hard to come back, and I struggled. Struggled a lot. I continued to just put one foot in front of the other and do the right thing. And I didn't go back to my career. I worked in a restaurant, you know, because I drove a piece of shit car, and I lived in a crappy house, and it was the happiest I ever was. Some man had told me and my ex-husband one time, less is more, and I remember that. And the less I had, the happier I was. And you know, so I have these, all my kids are doing wonderful, all I've ever wanted. And, you know, I have a good job, and, you know, I was able to, you know, put my feet flat on the ground, and, you know, get a nice car and get a better place to live. And my kids come over all the time, and life is amazing. And I'm doing this thing, and I've got a sponsor, and I'm sponsoring them, and they have sponsors, and they have they have sponsees, and you know, that's how it works. I started to try to rebuild my faith, and so I worked real hard on my spirituality. And Thanksgiving of last year, my older son, him and his wife had twin boys, and they were my everything. I'm going to try to do this without crying. Anyways, Thanksgiving of last year, the twins were 16 months old, and they crawled out of their bed, and had never done that. And they were able to get through a back door and into the pool in the backyard. And Leighton passed away that night, and you know, Jackson's never going to be the same. You know, he's in a persistent vegetative state. And you know, I was in Alabama when I got that phone call, and my brother was taking me to the airport, and all I remember saying to him was, you know, you either need to get me a joint or a pack of cigarettes, because I quit smoking. And he said, Erin, we're in Robertsdale, Alabama. Where am I going to get you a joint at?
Right.
I said, I don't know. Then pull in that store and let me get cigarettes. And that's, of course, I started smoking. It's the addict in me. And I came home, and you know, I went to the trauma unit where my grandchildren, where everybody was. And when I got there, there were so many people there from the rooms. I promise you that 300 people came in to that hospital in a 10 or 12 day period. And we, you know, they sat with us, they cried with us, they held us, they prayed with us, they prayed for us. And the miracles that happened in that hospital were amazing too. You know, even though the tragedy was the tragedy, it's what kept us and propped us up. You know, would have never made it through without people in the rooms. That's for sure. You know, they brought us food. They, it was amazing. It was amazing. I can't even explain it to you. And they transferred my grandson to Fort Lauderdale to Joe DiMaggio Hospital. And my son, the twins' dad, said, Mom, we're going to turn this tragedy into a time we're not going to use. So we started going to meetings down in Fort Lauderdale, and we didn't know anybody. You know, we actually, the hospital gave us a room down there, and that's where we stayed 2 months. And we would go to meetings, and I didn't know anybody, but we shared about it, what's going on, and we got support down there. And people from here came and visited us, and to tell you that I wasn't mad at God would be an understatement, because I didn't understand it, and I don't understand it now. What I do know is that I believe God chose our family. We're a very strong family, and He chose us to be able to carry the message of hope. Because you know, we had the green light to use. You know, people kept saying, you know, I don't know how you guys are doing it. I don't know how you're not using it. You know what? You know, we can be the victim, or we can be the survivor. you know, and we all chose to be survivors. You know, I don't know why what things that happen in this world happen, but they do. And so through this tragedy, we've been able to help a lot of people. You know, we've been able to get scholarships for children that can't swim. We've been able to scholarship people to get pool fencing around their fencing. And we continue to go to meetings and we share our story and we tell people, you know what, no matter what, you don't have to use. I have a little switch on it now. You know, I believe people use because they want to, you know, not because of any other reason. You know, I got high, I want to. And I would much rather people tell me that than, you know, my girlfriend left me, my husband left me, I lost my job, they repossessed my car. That's all bullshit. We use because we want to. And I believe that 3 family members that suffer a tragedy like that and none of us picked up, then you can't give me a good enough reason why you do. And so I had to work on my spirituality. You know, I had to get back in touch with it. And you know, I pray and I, you know, I continue to help people. And I go to meetings, you know, and I do everything I can to reach a hand out. I really believe that if you don't help people, you won't stay clean and sober. I don't care who you are, you know. That's the basis of this whole thing. You know, you have to be able to reach a hand out to help somebody else. And if you're not doing that, and you're not going to meetings, and you're not going to program recovery, I don't care if you got 1 day or you got 20, you're going to pick up. You know, that's my experience. That's exactly what happened with me.